Hi, it's me again. I'm back with another video. So today's video is going to be about how to recover self-esteem, getting away from toxic people, and the fact that you don't owe people an apology or closure. It's a pretty long title. I'll figure out how to shorten it later. Now, today, the video is a little bit different. It's a little bit unique, a little bit special, but seriously, no, not really. So for this video, it's probably going to be a little bit all over the place, but the main part that I want to talk about is how to recover self-esteem. So depending on like the life that you lived prior to growing up, or the people that you knew, or the way that you were socialized or raised, you're going to have a different relationship with your self-esteem than other people. So in my case, I'm not going to go into detail, but a lot of stuff happened when I was younger. So it led to me, and this was forces outside of my own control, it led to me really not liking myself. So I dealt with a lot of self-hate, a lot of negative self-talk, and very low self-esteem. So I've been in therapy on and off since I was 5 years old. I'm currently in therapy right now. I've been in therapy consistently for the past 5 or so years. Prior to that, I was very adverse to therapy. I was like, oh, therapy is bad for me. I shouldn't be at therapy. It's going to change me and make me into a new person. I'm going to be someone different. My friends won't like me, da 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 da. A lot of excuses. As I got older, I realized that it was really nothing but benefits for what I needed in my life. And it did take me a really long time to meet a good therapist. I had a bunch of really bad therapists as well growing up. I had a lot of people who were therapists who would basically bribe and coerce me into certain behaviors that they wanted to see, just so that they can have like a positive outcome. So that is what led me to be like on and off with therapy, and that's how my relationship with it was so negative. But once I reached adulthood, I met a really, really good therapist, and eventually we came to the conclusion, because for me, I don't remember a lot of my childhood. Like there's like years. This is like a trauma response, obviously. There's like years that are just like gone. Like I remember some stuff from when I was 5, some stuff from when I was 7. I remember one thing from when I was 9, and then up until like 14, gone. 14, I remember a couple of things, 15 some things, 16 some things, 17, I can't remember a lot from there. And then 18 and onward is like hit or miss. Like if I think really hard, I might be able to remember. So eventually, I enrolled in this course. I forget what it was called. I think it was DBT. It was some type of therapy where basically you think back about certain things that happened in your childhood, and through certain exercises, try and remember them. Now, for me, it didn't work because it was just like exhausting, and I'm not really a fan of a lot of it. Like, and during one session, it was just really hard for me, right? I'll say this. So basically, everyone sits there and we have like a circle to like trauma dump. And I don't mind trauma dumping, but it's like I need to know the people. Like I want to be in the fact that like, oh, there's gonna be something that comes out of this. We're gonna get to know each other, blah, 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 blah. That didn't happen. So it was like, oh, now the session is over, done. If you talk to each other, you'll be kicked out. And I was like, huh? I don't know these people. So it was just like a lot of extra stress on me. So during one of the sessions, I ended up calling my really close friends, had a nervous breakdown, and they're like, yeah, I don't think this is for you. So eventually I left that. How to recover self-esteem. I think for me, the journaling process that started from the DBT was really, really beneficial. I liked it a lot. It was very helpful. I don't have any of the worksheets anymore. A lot of them got damaged when I moved, and I never got a chance to copy them. But like the format is pretty simple. It's like each day, what happened, you write like the main thing, some things that triggered you. Were you able to overcome them, or did it like cause you a major setback? And then any type of coping mechanism that you have, survival mechanisms that you use, or sometimes it's like toxic stuff on there. Like it will be like, oh, ideation, I'm not going to say the word, or like harm. And I was like, okay, well, that's not something that I've ever dealt with. Like anyone who knows me knows that I've never been in those type of things. But seeing them on the paper, I'm like, wow, that's like really sad. So I stopped journaling for a really long time. I've been given lots of journals by my mentor at the time, and I just never used them because I was like, do I need these? Do I really want to talk about what's going on? Do I really have XYZ to say? So once I realized that it's more beneficial for me because it's like a time that you get to talk to yourself, that's when I was like, okay, I'll do this more. Yeah. So now I'm going to go into the actual things that you can do and not just backstory, because I realize I've been recording for like 5 minutes. So, number one, positive self-talk. Like if you struggle with negative self-talk, you're going to want to do positive self-talk. Go in the mirror, maybe every morning, every afternoon, every evening, and you're going to fake it till you make it. You're going to look at the mirror, and whatever thing you're not confident about, you're going to tell yourself, this is great, I love this, or at least be neutral about it. Like starting neutral is probably the most realistic thing that you can do. For me, what did I have trouble with? I'm trying to remember. One thing was my hands. I used to be like pretty concerned about my hands because I have very large hands. I think it's like a genetic thing. People in my family have pretty large hands. So that was something that I was really insecure about. That and my forehead. Okay, so people in my family, like my immediate family, they have very tiny foreheads. So I thought that was like a normal forehead size. So like as I grew older, I was like very insecure about my forehead. It's not a thing anymore. I know it's like a normal size, whatever. So I don't deal with these things anymore. That's why it took me so long to think about them. But I would go in the mirror and basically be like, oh, your hands are normal. Your hands are lovely. Your hands help you hold things. Like your hands don't need to be aesthetically pleasing. This is what you use your hands for. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, your forehead is normal size. Like, look, it's only 4 fingers. Da, da, da. This is completely normal. Be like accepting of yourself. Your proportions are fine. So that was like something that I did. And every single day I would do it over and over again. I would spend about 1 minute in the morning, 3 minutes in the afternoon, and like 5 minutes in the evening. And I'll just be gassing myself up. Like, oh, look at your nose. Your nose is so cute. Your eyes are so big and beautiful. Like this hood is so unique. Your eyebrows are gorgeous. Your gap, your teeth. I've never really had like self-esteem issues with my teeth. People have tried to tear me down about it, but I'm like, they look so unique and different, no? So I never really had issues about that. So I was just like, oh, I love my teeth. My teeth are gorgeous. Like that type of stuff. Like just tell yourself about things that you like, gas those up, things that you're a little bit insecure about, try and be neutral. Like, oh, say like you don't like, I mean, I have freckles, but I never really was insecure about freckles because, I think they look okay. And I would be like, oh, these are cute. Like it's different. It doesn't look like, the fake ones, but they're fine. Like I'm completely okay with them. And that was something that I would just do. So number one, the main point is that you're going to basically talk about how much you like that thing, what's special about that thing, and how you can learn to be at least neutral about it. The process of liking it is going to take a little bit longer, but not that long, honestly. Like if you're doing this every day, I would say by like the 3rd month, it starts to not feel like a lie. You're like, oh, I genuinely like this about myself, and there won't be that issue. Number 2 about self-esteem is going to be journaling. So journaling is a little bit annoying because of the time that it takes, but it also helps me because, when you are neurodivergent, this is something that I was very concerned about because like I told you at the beginning of the video, like the amount of memory loss that I have, I was like, oh my gosh, I have like early onset dementia, but it's honestly just like a side effect of having anxiety and bipolar 1. So once I came to terms with that, I'm like, okay, this journaling, I'm going to start doing it now and it's going to help me remember certain things throughout the day. So then I can reflect. And if it's something that I thought was really important, I can jot it down. So then later, if I need to like review like what happened, I can read it again. I'll show you. Okay, so this is my journal. I bought it like 2 months ago, before my birthday, and I wanted to go into the new year with like reflections that I could like actually look at. I'm not gonna read this out because it's private, but basically it's just like me going over what happened that day, what I felt strongly about that day, what was kind of passive, was there anything like essential that I need to remember, and what I can work on like as for goals that week. So like the first one was just like, okay, try and I'm probably gonna blur this, but you'll see like it's like a full page. And throughout the weeks, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make sure the pages stay full, but like towards the middle, some pages are like half full, some are a quarter full, some are 3/4 of the way full. The thing is like be flexible with it because if you're stressing out about how much to write in here, it's not really gonna be like a de-stressor for you at the end of the day. I do mine at like 11 every night because I stay up pretty late. I'm trying to fix my sleep schedule, but I do mine at like 11 every night and I just talk about stuff that's happening right now, like issues that I may be having with friends, issues that I may be having at work, that type of stuff. And it's like very, very helpful, very, very beneficial. Number 2 is journal. Sorry, I lost track. Number 3 is going to be hobbies, things that you enjoy. So for me, I really like reading. I have a lot of books. I read a lot of books online. I buy a lot of books and I read those. So reading is very, very helpful because it can be like a form of escapism where it lets you get away from bad situations that may be in your mind and how you can recoup and like basically distance yourself from certain traumas that maybe haven't at that moment. So it's very, very good. One of the other things that I used to do was cleaning. this was in college mostly, but like while I was taking a psychology class, my psychology professor, he's like, that's not really a coping mechanism. Like that's not really helping you. It's just a distraction. So I was like, okay, so let's not do the cleaning to like de-stress. And it was also distracting because like my roommates, they would complain all the time, like, why are you vacuuming? It's like early in the morning or it's like late at night. And I was like, okay, this is very selfish because I'm cleaning and making all this noise while other people are trying to sleep. So I found other avenues. The other thing, crochet. This has been one of my hobbies since high school. I learned this in my senior year. This was like one of my key memories. So this is going to be hard to hold up. I'm not going to move the camera. It's too annoying. So this is my crochet basket. Okay, try again. The camera cut off. I don't know what happened. But this is my other thing, crochet. I have a big old basket that I bought for all my crochet materials. I have been crocheting since high school. This is my kit bag, which has all like the little needles, tools, hooks, and other bits and bobs that you'll need to crochet. I've recently bought more of them because before I only had like the hooks, the stitch markers, and yarn, not just yarn, but like a measuring tape. But recently I like upgraded it, and the rest of the basket is just filled with yarn and cotton, and I have more cotton back in there. So I've made lots of toys over the years. I have pictures of them, but I don't feel like including them. Is a little bit annoying. And also, I'm not that good at it, but I find it very, very fun. So for me, it's not about like how cute stuff turns out. That's a bonus. But the main thing is like during that moment, like while I'm crocheting, I can just focus on crochet where I'm like, oh, do I have back loop only? Do a front loop only? Double crochet, single crochet, half double crochet, that type of stuff. And it's like very great for me because if I'm very stressed out, I can just like remove myself from that stress and put all of it into whatever I'm making. I mostly do amigurumi, which are like little chibi dolls, and they're like different animals and stuff like that. And that's very healing for me because in that moment, I'm not really thinking about anything else. I'm not like, oh, tomorrow I have to do this at work. Oh, I have to meet this today. I have to do that. I don't have to. I can just focus on, okay, I'm doing this. I'll show you the one that I'm working on right now. It's a me, but it's like a rose doll. There's an extra string here. I'll move it. It's like a rose doll. The eyes and stuff aren't finished. But basically it is pretty cute. It's free. I found it on Instagram, and then I found the other information about it elsewhere, and I downloaded the PDF, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna make this. It's gonna be my thing for like the next month. Now, before, when I was in college, I would spend like 8 hours a day on the crochet. Not every 8 hours a day, sorry, 8 hours every weekend. So maybe I would do 4 and 4 or 8 full way through. But as I've gotten older, I realized that I don't really have time like that. So I'll do like, the last time I worked on this for 3 hours 2 weeks ago. So now after I'm done recording, I'm going to finish probably the body or the head. And that'll be like another bit of time that I can work on this. And that's just like very helpful for me. So crochet is like my other go-to thing. And the last thing is video games. So I play a lot of video games. My favorite type of video games are basically like No Man's Sky, Borderlands 2, Borderlands 3, Skyrim, The Outer Worlds. Not Outer Wilds, that one's too hard for me. Outer Worlds, I don't like puzzle games, sorry. I like Korra, even though it's really hard and I've not been able to beat it. Mirror's Edge was one of my favorite games. Bayonetta, oh my gosh, love that game. Like I have many, many games that I like to play. They're very fulfilling for me and very fun. So after that, yeah, that's what I can say. So like number 3, just get into some hobbies, get into some stuff that'll be fun for you. So 1, positive self-talk. 2, journaling. 3, hobbies. Number 4 is being around positive friends. So meet friends who are going to elevate you, make you grow, make you change. They're not going to let you be negative. Like they're going to call you out on your BS. Like if you're sitting there negative self-talking, to something I used to do all the time, where I'm like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I have imposter syndrome. Why am I here? Da da da. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, look at yourself. Look at what you've accomplished. Da 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 da. And they'll pull you out. But I also have to say that this can be pretty problematic because you don't want to be that toxic friend who's like the drain and the leech on the friend group. So you do have to do your self work. Like the main thing, like I said before, was therapy, but like you have to do that self-work because eventually if those people are up here and you're the one that's down here and you're always being negative and stuff, eventually they're going to want to stop trying to pull you up. They're just going to give up. They're going to be like, okay, you are too much. You're too selfish. It's exhausting to be around you. And you don't want people to disdain you. And you don't want like frenemies. So be careful with that one. And the last one that I'm going to say for like improving self-worth is finding stuff that brings you happiness. And even if other people don't like it, stand firm in your belief that that thing is something that makes you happy. So try and continue to be positive and optimistic and forthright about who you are. And eventually you'll attract people to you who think that way. And for people who are being like hateful of that thing, you can just not have them or have them be like a situational type of friend. Okay, so that's 5 things that you can do to improve your self-worth, self-esteem, and self-love. Oh my gosh, self-love and self-care. I'm going to talk about this too. This is like a quick aside. So for self-love and self-care, something that I started doing a while ago, I don't really do it as much right now. It's too cold. But like makeup was really, really fun for me for a little bit. Like if you know, the beginning of the channel was like budget beauty, blah, blah, blah. Because I loved going to Marshalls and buying makeup and like trying them and using them. But that's not something that like fascinates me as much as it did at that time. I think I was just very interested in that because I'd finally become an adult and I was able to wear makeup. So I was like super fixated on it in college. But also because I told you guys in one of my other videos, the college, there was like a lot of Black excellence type expectations. So like we had to try harder, we had to be more whatever put together, and I complained about that a lot. But whatever, it was something that was very fun for me at the moment. But as I transitioned, I was like, okay, I don't really want to do this anymore. So that's another thing. If something is no longer interesting to you or it doesn't give you the joy that it used to, maybe you could take a break from it. And if it's still like something that you come back to and it's still not as fun or interesting or healing as it used to be, you can just stop doing it. So for my personal self-care and self-love that I used to do, I would basically just like lock myself in a room, get a bunch of books, put on a face mask and read. And that was so helpful to me, like, because I'm a very introverted person. I tried to be extroverted just because of like certain things, and I would push myself to be very extroverted, but then I would go home and be like massively like exhausted and depressed, and I was like, okay, I can't keep pushing myself to do this. This isn't sustainable. So find what works for you. Sorry, I keep looking at myself in the viewfinder. Anyway, so otherwise, you don't have to push yourself to be that kind of person that you are not. I think that's the best way I can say that. So moving on, the next topic, I'm probably going to put in transitions. We'll see. We'll see. Getting away from toxic people. So I think the biggest helpful, most like useful thing that you can do is make an exit plan. So an exit plan is basically like the step that you need to do to get away from that person. So say you're in an abusive relationship, like your partner is like very hostile, very toxic. You can just put up a front and be like, yeah, this is great. I'm fine with this, da 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 da. And then slowly start making things up. Like, okay, not making things up, but like getting what you need in order to leave. For exit plan, I'm gonna edit the other part out because stuff. So for an exit plan, something that we can use as an example. Say you have an abusive partner and you're wanting to get away from that situation. Your exit plan could probably like first start by noting the times that they're not around you, times that they have to be gone. So like when do they work? For a brief time, you could probably change your work schedule. That's something that I did as well. You can change your work schedule and say, oh, can I come in at this time and this time and this time for this next week? So then you can pretend you're going to work. And then once the other person leaves, you can come back and practice packing your stuff and leaving. And then basically you have a whole week to get that out of the way and get gone. So then by the end of the week, you know, you've practiced a bunch of times, you have all your stuff, you're able to pack it in a quick time. You can throw it in your car and dip. If you don't have a car, maybe you can buy a suitcase. If you don't have a suitcase, go buy a duffel bag. They have them at like Walmart and Wegmans and stuff for like $15. If you can't afford that, you can probably buy one of those big like Costco bags or Marshall's bags. They're usually like $1, and then or even the ones at Tops, and just grab all your stuff and throw it in there. And then, you know, grab it, hop on the bus and go. Call the shelter, call whoever you need to go wherever you need to go to declare your status and get gone. So that's something that can be very, very beneficial for getting away from toxic people. But if it's not like a domestic situation, right? So if you're not living with that person, what I would say is like slowly create distance. Like if you have like a toxic frenemy or like a bully in your life, you can slowly just start putting distance between you. It's like basically like if they're teasing you and stuff and being really mean, you could just like start agreeing, like just be completely appeasing, like, oh yeah, okay, this is true, ha 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 ha. And then they'll lower their guard around you because they'll think you're an easy like target or whatever. And then over time you can just like keep putting distance. So like for me in high school, my ex-friends from middle school, I used to, at the first couple of weeks of school, I would go between the lunch tables. So I would like sit with them and then sit with my new group of friends, sit with my new group of friends. And then I started to slant the proportion of time that I'll be there. So at the start, I was like sitting with them for the majority of lunchtime and then moving with my new friends who I actually liked. And then the next day less time, like maybe 5 minutes less, 5 minutes less, 5 minutes less. On the other side, 5 minutes more, 5 minutes more, 5 minutes more. And then, by the end of the month or the week or the 2 weeks or whatever, you are completely separated yourself from them. And what happened was afterwards, they did come up to me. Well, one of them, not a bunch of people. They're like, why aren't you sitting with us anymore? And I was like, oh, it's just hard to be over there. You guys, you have your interests, and I met some other people who have more interests in line with mine. So that's something that you could do. If you want to completely avoid confrontation, is if you see those people coming here, you just run. Eventually, they'll get the message. Because once again, those people, anything, if they talk crazy about you, you can just be like, that was that point in my life. I'm at this point in my life. I don't want to be friends with people who are not fulfilling to me and honestly drain me. Yeah, so that's something that you can do. It may or may not work depending on how deep you are into it. If that friend group is like obsessed with like having you around just so that you can be the punching bag, maybe you can just say it in an outright way, like, you guys are very toxic to me and I really don't get much from this friendship. So it's honestly better for me not to be here. There's many, many different ways. Like, you need to formulate your own thoughts. Like, something that I'm very big on is, if you're not one who likes to speak or you don't like confrontation, you can write out all your thoughts on a note, and then you can approach that person, because once again, you don't owe people closure, but some people, they feel the need to give people closure. So this is advice that I've given to those people. Go up to them with whatever note you crafted. Take a couple days, like really a couple days, to just like get all your thoughts together, everything you want to say, and make sure it's nice, clear, and concise, because you don't want it to be like a outright attack. You don't want it to be extremely toxic. Like, the way that I handle things, I like to give people grace, because if you are super aggressive, that's something that I had to unlearn being, because the school that I went to was very passive aggressive. So if you were like very like outright, like, okay, I don't like this about you and this is exhausting me, people would cry, they would create drama, it would just be a lot, and then they'll be like, oh, you're bullying me, da da da. So that was like something that I had to unlearn, because I'm like, not everybody is going to want to be so forthright in whatever their grievances are. So you can take a couple days, write it down like notes, like, hey, this is what hurt me. I know that it's not your intention to, or maybe it's not your intention to talk to me this way or put me down in this way, or, oh my gosh, it keeps cutting off at 11 minutes. It cut off. So at each time, you can just be a little bit, it's not really aggressive, but very forthright in what you're saying. But you don't want to come off as too callous, because then things can be flipped on you. It's like a Darvo, right? Where it's like the person who's the abuser in the situation can flip it back onto you. You don't want to give them that opportunity. So you want to be like very graceful and just say, oh, throughout these days, like this, and this has happened, and it's made me feel XYZ way, and it's not really fulfilling to me anymore to be around you. It's not anything that you've done, but maybe we've grown apart as people. That type of thing. You don't want it to be super long unless it's like a lot of stuff that's going on, but you also don't want it to be super short, because then maybe you're not getting everything out that you want to get out. Okay? So make a note, read it out to them, or even like, if you are too scared, you can ask them, like, is it okay if I talk about this over text? But a lot of times people don't even do that. They just like send a text dump, and they're like, this. It depends on what your relationship is like with that person. Like, if you genuinely don't care about them, text is the way to go. Like, for me, if I'm like completely checked out, I've had this happen to me too. Like, people have been like, I don't want to be your friend anymore. And it's like a really long text, and I get that. But I started doing that as well for people who I genuinely don't care about. But if it's somebody that you do care about and you want to try and improve the relationship, maybe you could have like a face-to-face talk. But you need to make sure that it's clear boundaries. Like, you want to make a setup where it's like, we have to agree prior to this that we're going to listen to understand and not listen to respond, because that can be a very, very big issue. Like, if you're trying to work out something with somebody, but they're not really listening to what you're saying, they're just trying to give you excuses as to why what they did is okay. That's not going to be okay. So you want to make sure you really are listening or reading whatever that person said and getting whatever you need to get out of that, understanding it, reflecting on what you've done. They can reflect on what they've done, and then have a continued discussion about that. That would be my best tip for that. Okay, so getting away from toxic people, like, once again, the thing that you can do, exit plan. Second thing, discussion. Third thing, just a text, or, there's always that fourth option where you can just ghost the person. And I have done that to people in the past who are just like, I'm not going to say they're a lost cause, but it's like you're trying to work things out with them and they're just being crazy. Not crazy. That's not a good word to say. So I'm trying to, work that word out of my vocabulary. But they're being not very beneficial, or they're not trying to work hard to improve whatever the issue is. They just want to take the easy way out and like argue. So that's my thing for getting rid of toxic people. If you have any other suggestions in the comments, like, you can drop them down below, and we could probably have a discussion about this. Now, This is my new phone case. Sorry, it's cute, so I wanted to show it really quickly. The last thing that I want to talk about is how you don't owe people closures. And this is still building off of getting away from toxic people. It's like I said before, like there's always that option to just go somebody. Like I know it's really hard because we are always taught like in our social like settings and culture that if something isn't working out, you need to cut things off very clearly and then tell them why. But I think that that's something that's dying with our generation because we just don't do that anymore. It's like, okay, it's not working, then I'm just gonna ghost you. And I know like people on the other end of it can feel very hurt because they're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? I didn't get any closure. But that's like the main thing. Like we don't owe people closure. I know it's really, really hard. But once I got out of that mindset where I'm like, oh, the person needs to tell me why they don't want to be my friend or why they don't want to talk to me, I was realizing that that's just extremely selfish. Like that person is completely checked out. Like they feel like I'm not bringing anything to them that's helping them. So why should they stop and be like, okay, so here's why? Because at the end of the day, like even if we do get that closure, maybe it's just going to be hurtful to me. And people who have given me closure, this is when I was like not really taking my medicine. This is when I was like all over the wall. This is when I was not in therapy. They have told me that like they just felt they couldn't be themselves or like they were in like a competition with me or other like really sad things that made me feel okay, I need to work on myself because I was being like, how do I say this? Like it's not that I was trying to be like a leader per se, but like I was very controlling. And this was like a survival mechanism that I learned growing up. So I'm not going to give myself a pass because at the end of the day, it was still wrong. But I would do things and put people in positions where they didn't have a choice but to say okay and do what I wanted. And this was when I was like a teenager. So it was very sad because like once I realized that that's what I was doing, I'm like, ah, no wonder these people just keep ghosting me. Because like say we were going to hang out outside of school. Like my senior year specifically, I only had 3 classes because I should have graduated early, but certain things happened where I wasn't able to get the social promotion that I wanted. Anyway, so I had 3 classes, and the rest of the day I was free. But before, at the very start of the school year, they didn't let us go home early. So we would just sit in the library and play games, and then at the end of the day, we'd go home. But then they were like, okay, you guys can just go home because the librarians are tired of dealing with you guys. You're too noisy, whatever. So the group of us who could leave early, we started leaving early. And I was putting my friends in like very strained positions. Basically, I had like a really bad ankle injury. Like, I don't know if I've said this before on here, but I have a bone disease. I've had this bone disease since I was young. So it's like osteopenia, which just means like low bone density. Like I have really low bone density. It makes it hard for me to like exercise and do certain things, which it was so bad for me because I used to be very into sports. I was very active, but that's something that I had to realize like I'm never going to be the person that I was all those years ago. And that's okay. So my senior year, or I think it was my junior year or senior year, I can't remember. I injured my ankle. Now, the thing about me is when I have an injury, I've injured my ankle like 4 or 5 times. Each time I rolled it, and each time it got worse, and it took longer to heal. And my ankle is very, very easy to roll. I also rolled it in college. It was so annoying. So I have ankle braces and stuff, but I typically don't wear them because whenever I do, this is just like a personal thing. I don't like being pitied. So people would see me with the brace or the boot, and they would be like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? Let me do this. Let me do that for you." And that was just something that I had to unpack and unlearn as to why I didn't want people to be nice to me. It was just like I'm not going to go into it, but it was like a very stupid reason. I'm not going to talk about it because it related to something else that I agreed not to talk about. So, basically what happened, I had a boot. I was coming home from work because I had like a nervous breakdown at work just because I was working in customer service at that time and it was just so exhausting for me. Yeah, I think it was my senior year. I can't remember. I could probably look it up on my medical record later, but it doesn't really matter. For this case, we're just gonna say senior year. I was at work, something happened, nervous breakdown. Something happened that triggered me at work, I'll say. And then at this job, it was like in the middle of the suburbs. So the bus didn't come very frequently. I didn't have a car at that time. So I was just like, all right, there's no bus for another hour. I'm just going to walk home. It was also winter. So I walked home and I was cutting across this field. There was like a hill and I slipped and fell. Now, there was this jogger who was running around, kind woman, and she came over to me. She's like, are you okay? I was like, because I was calling for help. I was like stuck on my back. I could not move my leg. I was stuck in the snow. And I was like, oh my gosh, help, help, help. She came over. She propped like her bag underneath my foot. And she called her dad. He came to get both of us. And they were going to take me to a different hospital. But it was out of network. So then I would let them know that I had to go to this other hospital. They were so kind. They took me there. Didn't ask for money. And I went to the hospital, because in America, you can't call an ambulance. You'll go broke. So I go to the hospital and my foot is like completely locked down where I'm in the ER. And they're like, what happened? I'm like, well, this is like my, I think 3rd time at that point that I had locked or rolled my ankle, and they were like, oh my gosh, like this looks so terrible. And I was like, do I need surgery? Like, da da da. They're like, no, it's like really bad, but it's not like bad enough that like you need surgery. So they gave me a wrap. They wrapped it up at first. So the first week, oh my gosh, this injury took forever to heal. The first week they made a wrap. I was out of school. Maybe it was my junior year. I can't remember. I was out of school. No, it was my senior year. It was my senior year. Genuinely, it was my senior year. So it was locked. I couldn't get up. They wrapped it and they gave me crutches. So I had the crutches. The second week I came back. They put on, it was a wrap and a brace. I still have one of the braces. It's like one of those braces that like pulls your foot up, but it was like on very weakly because of my position that I was in. If they put it up, then it probably would have injured it more. So then over the weeks, I just kept tightening the vice grip brace, like it's bandages or whatever, and then tightening the actual brace. And then I think the start of the second month after the injury, they gave me a boot, and I wanted to go to school so bad. Like I had like tried to run out the house. I had on my crutches, and I was like trying to go catch the school bus, and it like caused an argument because obviously I was still injured. But I was like so depressed. I'm like, bro, I can't stay at home anymore. Like I want to go to school. There was just a lot of stuff going on. So then I finally recovered enough. This was like after a month and a half. Oh my gosh, it was so long. And I was finally able to like walk with my crutches. So the first 2 weeks I was like at school on my crutches and I still have my boot. And obviously, kids are kids, people did not believe that I was still injured. They're like, you were gone from school for a month, you're back and you're still wearing a brace. And, at that time I wasn't really comfortable like disclosing what's wrong with me. Like even my closest friends at that point, no one knew that I was bipolar. Cause I remember I told people in elementary school and the reaction was so negative that I was like, I'm never telling anyone again. And when I got the injury and like my bone disease, I'm like, I'm not going to tell anyone because they're going to make fun of me. It was like, I didn't believe in the strength of my friendships and whatever. So I had two really cool friends who were like very supportive, but I was still not very well. I wasn't taking my medicine and stuff. So I ended up cutting both of those people out. And that was something that I did regret later on, but I tried to rekindle and it didn't work. So I was like, okay, I'll just move on. Cause I had other friends at that point and I was like, I'm not going to be selfish and like people who I was rude to and cut off because of my bad mental health. Of course, they're not going to want to take me back. But at that time, there were some of my friends and they were like very helpful. They're like, why would, at that time, I'll just use they, because why would they fake this, da da da? Why would they do this for attention? Like it's obviously a real injury. And that was like so helpful to me and like so affirming. I'm like, oh my gosh, they genuinely believe me. Like I didn't even have to tell them like I have a disease. I didn't have to tell them anything. And it was just like complete trust and faith in me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so helpful. But people were like, I was so annoyed because I went to the office, I had a doctor's note and everything. And I'm like, can I get an elevator key? And they would not give me an elevator key. So throughout the like 3 months of that injury where I wore that boot, I had to go up and down the stairs with crutches. I don't know if the office thought I was faking it or nothing, but I'm like, bro, I showed the nurse that I have this disease and everything. And the adults won't believe me, but my friends do. Other students didn't believe me because the adults didn't believe me. They're like, oh, if it's really an injury and you're really so serious, why do you still have to take the stairs? I'm like, they won't give me an elevator key. So later on, I recovered and yeah, I did a lot of mean things to people who were genuinely my friend at that time and cut them off. But like, I don't have regrets because at the end of the day, they don't owe me anything. And it was selfish of me to be so hostile to them. So yeah, if we have anything else that we can talk about at this moment, we can say it down in the comments. So this is just my general advice for what's going on. I'm going to try and edit this and make it neat and nice. And until next time, I'll say peace.